Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today, talking about the O-line. So let's get right to it, my fellow Better Bears fans. We are adding to the O-line. I've mentioned, obviously everybody talks about the O-line, but I've mentioned a few times, I think, since Ben Johnson's been hired about not just the significance of the O-line to Caleb, but specifically to Ben Johnson. And again, this idea of not only him doing a job that he hasn't done, but also the main thing that everybody keeps talking about, this glorified offensive coordinator, doing that with a roster that's not anywhere the same as the one he had, and especially when you're talking about the O-line. And so we knew it was going to be a priority, and I've specifically mentioned for Ben Johnson, it's probably going to be imperative that he's able to get that offensive line because it changes so much of what you do. Now, we've had, I would probably say 5 spots, but realistically maybe 3 or 4 spots that are wide open for us to refill. Obviously, you got 3 guys that are not returning. Well, Tevin could return, but as of now, not returning. So Braxton is on the fence of what, they kind of think of him, and Darnell Wright might just skate along because he's, a first round pick that's only going into his 3rd year, but still significant spots. So anyway, we get Jonah Jackson, we get Joe Thuney. And look, my thing is, because I'm very much here for the conversations and stuff. My thing is, do not, whether it's this or anything else, don't add your own extra context and stuff to things people say. Don't add extra things to what I say. If you don't necessarily understand the point of what I'm making, that's one thing, but don't assume and then try to tell me what I'm saying. With these signings or any signings, it's been consistent. If you've been here every year, we're going to look at the full context, especially when it comes to offensive line, because the casual fan probably doesn't know which players are good or why in general, but when it comes to the O-line, they really don't, because there's no real stats. They only go off these, subjective made-up stats by PPF and stuff like that. But even then, that's all they're doing. And so we always go past the stats and everything when we're talking about free agent. It's the nature of the beast. I don't care if I'm talking about the Bears or the Chargers or the Bucks or the Rams. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is the nature of NFL team building. The way it's set up currently, most people don't make it to free agent. Like, the big name players don't make it to free agent. There's a reason why it's such big news when you can get a young quarterback or a pass rush or whatever, stuff like that. Like, there's a reason why Myles Garrett wanting to trade is huge news, because guys like that in the current structure don't make it to free agent. And so, and obviously they don't always get traded. Like, we see a Debo get traded for whatever, 5th round pick, something like that. Diggs at one point got traded for a lower round pick. Like, we've seen it happen. Guys who were probably just past their peak and people are like, wait, what? But it's been proven over time, almost every time, that player's on their decline. And they're on the decline with their health or their production versus how much you're paying them. And that's what it comes down to. Teams are trying to unload a contract for somebody they won't pay for. Otherwise, they'll release them, like Devontae Adams. They tried to do that. They couldn't find it. They don't want to pay for him. They release him. So this is no knock on anything. This is just me pointing out the obvious. Like, because I think when it comes, actually, I know at this point, because it's been many years that I've seen this happen. When it comes to free agency, especially for a person's team, they tend to want to lean way too positive. Not even way too positive. They want to lean over unrealistically positive. And it's like, okay. And I've seen it with so many guys who didn't even make it past their first contract, guys that didn't even start, like in all season, people going crazy over. I'm like, bro, you got to really look at it. Now, as I said at the beginning, and as I said before, like, these are upgrades. And again, like, I never said they weren't. So these are upgrades, but they're two different types. I mean, you got Thuney. Again, there's a reason people become available, and some people might be tempted to look at what he did at left tackle in a pinch for the Chiefs and kind of judge him on that. At the end of the day, he's 32, which is not old for a lineman, and he is a all-pro, absolute all-pro at guard. And so that's his natural position, and I have no issue with him there. The reason he's available, the reason you got him, is because he has a pretty decent price tag that the Chiefs aren't able to pay with what they're trying to do with their roster. And so essentially a cap casualty, just like I talked about before. Middle round pick or whatever, which is next year, and some people will say if it's a year later, it's almost down a round. So essentially what some people would say fifth round pick value for him is not a commentary, and that's why I say you gotta look at each situation. This isn't a commentary on his performance, which again some people might be tempted to say is really just a commentary on the Chiefs salary cap situation. And then with him having 1 year left, more than likely at 32 you want to sign him up, and if we do that, we'll probably restructure the cap hit for this year, so it probably won't even be as big. But we got the cap to sustain that type of hit where the Chiefs didn't, and that's where that came in. Jonah Jackson, now this is a little bit different. This is a guy who has proven that he can have he can have a good year, but at the same time, well, also we know he has familiarity with Ben Johnson, but also this is a person that's been dealing with injuries. Like, at the end of the day, the Lions were okay moving on from him. And then after a year with the Rams, they were okay moving on for him. That's the facts. And I don't understand why that's so controversial to people to say. Why is that hate and why is that negative? Because I'm pointing out what actually happened. So again, whereas Thuney, you got here because, you know, of what's happened with the Chiefs, that's not necessarily what's going on with Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson is number one, a limited guard. He's kind of, again, a power guard. That's his thing. And then also he's really in a prove it year. So he's more in the situation where he's going to have to show that he can be healthy. I mean, they might sign him, but I don't see why you would. Or extend them, I should say. But I feel like it's more of a prove it year where, okay, let's see that you can be healthy. Let's see that you can still be impactful in this system, blah, blah, blah. So that's more so what I'm looking at. So yeah, that's that point. I don't understand why it's an issue to say, like, let's look at the full picture of something. And again, I mean, like, Thuney is huge. That's you know, top shelf guard. And so it's not like it's bad that we got him. Of course it's great, but I don't think it's bad to point out kind of how we ended up here. So anyway, it's still questions to go. Still questions to be answered ahead, especially because Jonah Jackson played center last year for the Rams. He didn't play that much for the Rams, but he did play some center. And we know in the NFL they kind of interchange interior guys, but I'm still of the belief certain guys can't be centers. Just because you can snap a ball don't mean you're a center. And so I don't know how natural he is at that position, but we know that Thuney is locked in at left guard. That's his thing. He's an all-pro. He's good, which I mean, doesn't mean Tevin can't come back, but it might make it less of a possibility. Either way, you got Darnell Wright, who played right tackle, but I think 100% could play right guard. And then again, Jonah could be right guard. He could be center. And then you still got question with Braxton over at left. So And then we got a guy, Amagaji as well. So, but I honestly don't know that. I don't know that I mean, unless he improves a lot over this summer, it was his first year, but I don't know that he's really going to be that much of an upgrade there. So, looking at the draft and how that impacts, which again, all the early draft talk outside of just like who the prospects are silly, because when you start talking about teams and mock drafts, it's dumb because free agency hasn't happened. That shifts things, as we can see. So I think we know we'll be upgraded, but we still don't have the full picture of the O-line, because these guys, and even after the combine where people are all up about arm length, like we're still in the same spot where really there's no true left tackle. There's no true left tackle. And for the most part, a lot of these guys are probably tweener guards. And so that throws a little bit of a wrench into the things, because again, we got two new interior guys. We got right where we might be able to move somewhere, and then whoever you draft probably is more of an interior guy too. So it's like, what do you do? Like, you take a Campbell, just take a chance on the left tackle? Because I'll say this though, what's his name, Taylor Decker, coming out of Ohio State, and even in the NFL, he wasn't the best pass blocker. Like, not every left tackle is a pure pass blocker. That's not always the case. Again, it's about scheme and everything. And I think with Penei Sewell and what they did in Detroit, they were very much power based. And I don't know that I would say Will Campbell is power based, but there are some guys like Anthony Belton. Now, could he handle speed? I don't know, but that's what tight ends and stuff is for. But so there are some guys that, yeah, you might be more of a power left tackle, but a true NFL left tackle, there's not really that in this draft. So I'll be interested, because I think if anybody had one spot that they were like, we most definitely got to change, it's probably center and then left tackle. And so that's still the two that are kind of up in the air. And maybe they said something about who's going to play what, but even still, when it comes to the draft, it's interesting to think, because as I mentioned, to me, two of the more safer players are the guards, Donovan Jackson, and Tyler Booker. And then even Connerly, who a lot of people are talking about as a tackle, I think he's a guard too. And so you got that. Then everyone's talking about Mimbo, and now and he's a right tackle. And then Will Campbell, they're like, his arms weren't as long. We figured maybe he could be right tackle instead of guard. So it's like, okay, there's a lot of tweeners, a lot of questions, and so it's still kind of, I wouldn't say a mystery, but it's still kind of interesting if we can find out what exactly the Bears are going to do with the complete unit, because I think there's some flexibility there. And even honestly, when we do draft, depending on who it is, it still might be questions. And my guess, knowing Ryan Poles and how he's been so far, he's going to want to cross-train a lot of guys, and he's going to want to go in there with versatility. Now, that's not always, it sounds good, but it doesn't always work out well, where guys are kind of okay at multiple places, but not great at anything. But I think that'll probably be the approach, man. They'll probably have guys, most of the tackles will probably be swing guys, where they could play inside or outside. So that's probably what we'll be looking at. But it is good. I mean, yeah, it's good. Obviously we need a new lineman. We needed an upgrade, and I think these are good moves. Jonah, for the pure fact that he's familiar with Ben Johnson, that's it, because it would have been weird to me to get a guy who only played like 4 games last year. But and then Thuney, like, that's a A+ move to take advantage of that situation. Obviously, we know Ryan Poles has some connects there in Kansas City, but I don't know how hard they were shopping them or what they was asked for or how that went. But that's an A+ move right there. So I'm super excited about that. And then, yeah, we still got some work to do, so we'll see kind of where it goes from there. But anyway, go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around, get a conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.